simply fun, just for fun, to be in a long one.
And there it is! Ball drive! Deep to left!
Hockey has it. Takes it to second himself. This improbable season has another chapter to it. And now they've got a call between third and home. The ball gets away. Into score Rosarena. The Rays have won. There's your Dan Johnson moment. Oh, my.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network, WATB Sports, and Channelside Sports as well. I am one of your hosts, the Great Al Bushman. As always, is joining me, my co-host with the most, Drew. Welcome back. We've been absent for a long time, and while we were away, lots of things have transpired from the last time we've spoke to everybody. But before we get into the show, make sure to go to the Believe Podcast Network, search our show, the Rays Rewind podcast, and make sure you guys get the new episodes that drop more frequently now. We are back, kind of like back in the swing of things. And also go to Twitter, follow us on at the Rays Rewind Pod. I'm taking up my glasses for this one. And Spotify and Amazon Music and Google Play for where you get all your podcasts. But just make sure you go to YouTube and follow us as well. But Drew, welcome back.
Yeah,
it's been a while, my friend. Lots of things have happened. So the Rays dropped yesterday's game 9-2. Did not complete the sweep of the Cleveland Guardians. Looked good for the first two games. 2 walk-offs in a row, which was awesome. One was an epic comeback on Friday night with a home run by Wander Franco, and then Randy Arozarena doing Randy Arozarena things on Saturday, and then Sunday dropping the should have been a sweep series against Cleveland 9-2. But things were amidst. Is it midst or is it midst? Missed. Midst,
I'm
right?
a writer. I'm a writer for my job, and I don't even know.
Okay.
So maybe I'm not that good of a writer, but I don't know.
Things are going a little bit weird beforehand. We did find out Basabe was brought up, which a lot of people were kind of like, okay, why is he being brought up? And then we found out the reason why. As you know, probably by now, allegations have come out about Wander Franco from things that were posted on Instagram on Sunday about him being possibly. We don't know. Listen, we don't know. We don't have any dog in this fight. We don't have any kind of opinion about what's going on, but his alleged thing with a possible minor. So that's what's going on. We always like to give the benefit of the doubt before things go haywire. The Rays put out a press report yesterday and today. A lot of people have been covering it. Eric Neander was on WDA today talking about it too as well. They did learn about it during the game as well. So that's why you saw Wander in the dugout and then kind of leaving after that as well. Drew, kind of wanted to get your thoughts, opinions about, obviously we want to look, everybody joining in. We're not going to give our side about what we think. We're just going to give you just like, look, it's a shitty situation. I think for not only the Rays, but whatever, I'm trying to use my words here like correctly. These allegations are taken seriously if it involves a child. We don't know what's true and what's not true. You see a lot of things on social media, and I texted you today, Drew. I was like, look, I gotta get off social media. Like, social media is just like the worst. It's so toxic. It's so you go down one rabbit hole, you read some stuff, and then you're going to another rabbit hole. So all of you Rays fans are gonna see a lot of stuff on social media. Now, it's your choice to believe whatever you want to believe and read whatever you want to believe and read whatever is out there. There's a lot of stuff out there right now that's pointing one way, and there's a lot of stuff that's pointing another way. So it's your choice to read whatever you want and believe whatever you want. So, Drew, as a baseball standpoint, this sucks.
Yeah, it sucks on every standpoint. Like you, I definitely it's hard to resist the urge to try and come up with a conclusion on your own,
right?
Based off whatever rumors or whatever's circulating on the internet. Because as a Rays fan, I want this resolved as soon as possible. and especially want it resolved to be a situation where, hey, even though as tragic as it would be,
Right.
Wander is a victim of some extortion scam or something along those lines, and or like it's all a big misunderstanding, or I don't know, like, or just that it's not the worst case scenario, and I want it resolved ASAP, right? And so because of that urge, because of that desire, I want to try and come to a conclusion based on whatever is circulating around the internet.
Right.
So it's hard to not let yourself get into that mess, because frankly, no one knows what's true, what's not, other than Wander.
All parties involved. Yeah.
All parties involved, and that's going to come out eventually. It's just a tragic situation, and one that I never thought, as a Rays fan, I mean, maybe this is naive of me, I never thought I'd really be in position of having to, I say deal with. I mean, obviously, we Rays fans are not the victim here if there was a crime committed. However, this is the kind of thing that's always seemed to happen to other teams, or other sports, other teams that I'm not rooting for in baseball. It's the Yankees with Domingo Germán and domestic abuse, or it's PED suspensions, guys like Ryan Braun or
Alex Rodriguez,
Fernando
David
Tatis,
Ortiz.
The Rays, the Rays just we're doing things the right way. And so for this investigation to be happening, guilt or no guilt, to someone on the team I love, and I mean, probably my favorite player.
Yeah.
It's a really you feel it's a really weird situation to find yourself in as a fan, because
it's almost an icky situation.
Yeah, and I feel guilty. Like, I feel guilty for I think for feeling
almost like taking his side. You feel kind of you want to take his side, but you feel icky doing it because you want to hope that it's not true.
More so, just I feel guilty for putting guys like baseball players, guys on a team I root for, on a pedestal.
Yep.
And I realize that, like, I grew up in a Christian home, grew up, very conservative home. To be quite frank, a lot of the way my wife and I raised our family is similar values, right? So I'm not naive enough to think that, the guys on the Rays, like they're so, like they're not out there, doing stuff that maybe I wouldn't agree with, but but it's hard not to put these guys on a pedestal and have higher expectations for them.
Right.
When they're on your favorite team, and especially individual players that you really get connected to, really enjoy watching and rooting for, like a Wander Franco, like a Randy Arozarena, and so when news comes out like this, it's just you almost I feel guilty for putting these guys on a pedestal at times, and it just, on top of that, being not only my favorite player, but the most important player to the entire team, and a guy that they've signed for 11 years. It's really almost indescribable how terrible the situation could possibly be, especially if things come out in the worst case, if this investigation proves to show that something happened.
And the timing sucks too, as well, because actually, I mean, I wouldn't even say the timing sucks, because I think anytime this happens, the timing, like, it's going to suck no matter what, especially something coming out like this. But I think for him, after what's been going on with him throughout the whole year, like his, on the field issues and being benched, and him being in a slump, and him, being suspended for a couple of days because of attitude, it's like, all right, as the front office, you invested so much money into him, and now you have this is almost kind of like parallels to, not obviously this is more extreme than, like, this almost mirrors like Josh Hamilton. You know what I mean? Number one pick, they invested a lot of like money and time into Josh Hamilton, and Josh Hamilton just kept messing up and screwing up. I mean, obviously this is a way more serious situation, but as the organization is, you're investing so much money in this guy who's number one pick, so much money for an 11-year contract. And now this is almost like, to me, it's almost near a strike three. Like, I want to ask you, because I know I read a lot of stuff on Twitter today, and I think Pat Donovan said like this today, where he said, don't expect to see Wander Franco in a Rays uniform the rest of the year. Yeah. Do you see that now, depending on how the situation rolls out, because obviously Major League Baseball is investigating thoroughly. The Rays are heavily involved in this too. And, they did come in with a mutual agreement for him to be on the restricted list. He's going to be away from the team for a long time. So we have a few weeks left. I mean, we have the rest of August and the rest of September. Could it be where you won't see him until this is obviously resolved? We won't see him in a Rays uniform for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of what the investigation shows, I think that obviously as long as the investigation is going on, he won't play.
Right.
From a baseball standpoint, obviously the Rays aren't, other than just not having him on the field and not having his, talent on the field, the Rays aren't technically penalized at all by having him on the restricted list. He's able to, he doesn't count towards the 26 man. I don't know if he counts towards the 40 man.
I don't think so.
And so, at least it's not a spot that's wasted because he's on the restricted list. So I think that as long as the investigation is going on, he won't play because nothing would have changed between now other than the initial shock of it.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to have changed over the period of the investigation until there is a conclusion and a verdict. So I think as long as the investigation takes is however long he will be out. Regarding what Pat said today on the radio, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's hard for me to imagine him not being on the team just because I want him to be playing.
And he's been doing so well the past few weeks too. He's like a hitter right now.
Well, he just looks so much more like the Wander Franco that we know he can be. And so that's poor timing. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be shocking for me to not see him play again this year just because of all this stuff. I have no idea how long it's going to take for the investigation. I went back because the most recent investigation I remember was the Trevor Bauer situation, and I went back and looked.
Wasn't there something with Randy that happened, I think, a year ago with it was alleged abuse, and they did an investigation and it turned out to be false too?
Yeah, well, and that happened over the off season, so it wasn't
okay.
It wasn't a situation where because it was literally the off season right after 2020.
That's right.
Where he became this big name and had the huge postseason run, and then it was like the story came out over the off season, and I don't remember how long it took for that to be resolved, but yeah, it was something wrong. I think custody of his kid with his ex-wife.
I think it was
in Mexico or wherever he was, and there was maybe alleged abuse or that he maybe even charges of kidnapping. I don't know. I don't remember 100% without going back and looking, and I don't want to take the time, but that one was resolved quickly over the off season, so there wasn't any baseball implications. Trevor Bauer, I know that they launched an investigation in early July of I want to say it was 2022.
That took a long investigation to do because I know they finally came out. I think it was this before the season even started this year, where nothing came out. There was nothing to pin him on. There was no charges being filed at all. I think MLB was waiting on what the district attorney of Los Angeles was going to do, and the DA found there was nothing to charge him with. They found nothing at all. So that investigation took almost maybe a little bit over a year to do, and since then he's been pretty much blacklisted from being back in the league because he's over in Japan now playing, and there's been really no teams calling for Trevor Bauer.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. So I mean, it would, man. I don't know how long it's going to take. The fact that it's something that's an international incident essentially, because it was over in the Dominican. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say that he won't play again this year.
Okay.
I think in my mind, I will say the result of him, if for a result to occur where he is able to come back and play without any issue, um, without any, just being able to come out of this cleanly.
Yeah.
And without any issue and be able to come back. I feel like it's a narrow outcome. Like it's a narrow chance that like you almost have to really thread the needle. Like things have to really line up and happen perfectly.
I agree with you on that. I think that whatever, if the outcome is positive, where it turns out to be it's a money grab, they were trying to black.
He's a victim. Of some sort of scam, or he made some bad choices.
He's not surrounding himself with the right kind of people and whatnot. But if it comes out to be that, I still think. Do you think there could be still kind of like a bad taste in the overall team's mouth with him, because it's just like there's issue after issue with him, but especially this year it's been the worst, where it's just been issue with him all throughout the year. Now you have this huge thing, and obviously everybody wants the best possible outcome, and I think we want this all resolved and say, okay, if this did occur and it happened, it's a shitty situation, and obviously he needs to be punished and booted out of the league and punished accordingly. If it turns out to be a money grab and a blacklist or blackmail thing, then that needs to be resolved. But either way, it just seems like drama. He's almost like turning into like a diva wide receiver in the NFL, where so much drama surrounds him. It's, to me, if I was a teammate of him, I'd be like, look, from now on, you need to lay low. Like, you need to just come do your work, and that's that. Like, surround yourself with the right type of people, and try not to get into trouble, because now you really have to kind of earn the trust back of the team and the organization now with this coming through. I think regardless of the outcome too, because you're still going to have some of those people that think, well, maybe he did do it. You know what I mean? Or maybe there was some smoke to this fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see that. I definitely think that it's, if he is able to come out of this as, hey, he was taken advantage of, it's not really, he didn't commit a crime. It's more of just he's being extorted, all this stuff. Then yes, I mean, I think he's got to make better choices about who he's around, and like it's a learning moment on top of other learning moments for him this year.
Yeah.
And you would just hope that, okay, hey, now we're going to get an even better version of Wander Franco down the road because of what he's gone through this year.
Championships cures everything.
Yeah. But,
if it turns out to be, more than,
of course.
Yeah. But
if it's the opposite and it comes, out that it's as bad as it's being, rumored, or as bad as the rumors say, then I think obviously, he will never play another inning for the Rays.
I don't think
you'll.
I don't think baseball. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think you'll ever be in the league ever again. Like you'll be either shipped back. You'll play in the Dominican League, the Mexican League, or the Japanese League. You'll never step foot on an MLB stadium ever again.
Well, and
depending on like if charges are filed and all that stuff.
Well, and yeah, of course, depending on the result of the investigation. The Trevor Bauer incident is, I think he was suspended initially.
He was suspended, I think,
324 games.
Right. So
2
full
full
years.
seasons.
2 full seasons, yeah.
2 full seasons. And now, obviously, each scenario, each situation is terrible. Right. But I could not imagine that if it comes out, like if for some reason he is suspended, Wander Franco, that, I can't imagine he would get less than that. Just from a suspension standpoint. Now, Trevor's was reduced to 194 games or something. It was like almost time served.
I think
he got reduced on appeal, but I couldn't imagine if a suspension came out down the road because of whatever the investigation showed or whatever resulted from this investigation. I cannot see how it would be lower than 320 what Trevor Bauer got, considering it's now involving involving a minor.
Right.
And
I think the suspension would, obviously depending on the outcome. If it's a positive outcome, reinstatement, all that. But I think if it's true, you're put on the blacklist. You're done.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean the fact that it's just as far as it involving a minor, I mean,
Yeah.
it's it just ramps it up in the worst way. I just if there was like a quantifiable number of games that he would be suspended for, it would be multiple years at minimum.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I would be shocked if it wasn't. And so you're already looking at a few years that he's not playing, and then I know the Dodgers released Trevor Bauer. I don't know how that financially impacts the Rays because obviously they would release, in this worst case scenario, he would be released and not on the team anymore. And I don't know financially if they're still on the hook for that money. I don't know how that works.
I think depending on how the contract was structured out, there could have a clause where it'd be an out clause where they wouldn't have to be financially strapped with him. I think because there should be some kind of termination clause whenever you sign like a contract. Like if anything happens like that, you're basically
you're foregoing.
You're foregoing any kind of monies going forward. So, all right. So moving along, we've said our piece about Wander Franco.
Can I say one more thing actually?
Yeah.
And this is something that I think is important, and I think that is going to be just because I will have to experience this as a fan, as a dad.
Yeah. Well, we both do.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's say even if worst case scenario doesn't happen, I'm not sure how I would go about explaining it if he comes back, if things end up being a scam, or I don't know, but let's just say worst case scenario happens and he's off the team. I mean, so Wander Franco, not only as I mentioned earlier, he's one of my favorite players, but he's my son's favorite player. My son's 6, and he loves the Rays. He watches them all the time, and he's got Wander shirts. We just got him a Wander Fathead kind of sticker for his room in our new house that we moved to. And he loves Wander Franco. I have a jersey. My only Devil Rays jersey is a Wander Franco Devil Rays black throwback. It looks sweet, I won't lie. And so, I mean, and he's just our favorite. He's our family's favorite player. We love watching him play.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think this is a reality. Like, this is something that a lot of Rays fans, and especially the parents, it's just sad because we're going to have a conversation with our kids who are invested in the team too, or who like the team and like Wander Franco and know who he is, having to explain why he's no longer playing or no longer on the team, whatever the situation ends up being.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to talk to my son about it, and we're, it's probably going to involve taking down Wander Franco posters and how, getting rid of my jersey and him, it's not going to be somebody that we're going to be able to support.
Right.
And it's just sad. And I hate that that's potentially the situation that a lot of Rays fans, including myself and yourself as well with kids, would have to find themselves in. But it's the reality of the world we live in, unfortunately. And, sometimes, these situations do happen, and, it's just unfortunate that it's happened at all, but especially to a player that I think is beloved by so many people, and especially kids.
Yeah.
Around the Tampa Bay area. So,
yeah, it's definitely just a terrible situation, not only for fans, but also like all the parties involved in it too as well. But let's go to the baseball side, how this will impact the Rays going forward. They do start a 3-game set in San Francisco tonight for the late game. Tyler Glasnow is back after being sidelined for a little bit with back spasms. He is back in full force, so hopefully we will have 100% Tyler Glasnow for the rest of the year since Shane McClanahan is officially done. Josh Fleming was brought up this past weekend to pretty much take the spot of Shane McClanahan. So Tyler Glasnow is your pure number 1 now. Drew, before we get on out here, this 3-game set against San Fran, I mean, this team has obviously lost one of their biggest pieces for their lineup, who was pretty hot this past month or so. Basabe has come up to take the place of him. Going forward, what do you see? What do you see the outlook of this team? I mean, this team was so red hot the first half of the season, and it just seems like after the All-Star break, the wheels have come off.
Mm-hmm.
The team isn't like the team we saw, the first half of the season. So going forward, I mean, what do you see for the San Francisco series? What do you think this team is going to be like going forward? It's rally time, pretty much. It's rally time.
Well, we need, obviously you need other guys to step up. Randy's got to step up big time. He's got to not get out of his slump. Esak's got to keep hitting homers to left field.
Yep.
And I'm not looking at guys like Basabe or even Curtis Mead to, they got to pick it up or anything like that. I mean, it's got to be a Rosarina. It's got to be Yandy playing at a high level still. Brandon Lau's got to get hot. Like, you need your best players to replace and to fill that void. I realistically, I mean, given the injuries to the pitching staff and Wander, let's just assume he's not on the team for the rest of the year.
Right.
I mean, I think they are able to hold on to a playoff spot just because they built, there are 6.5 games up basically of the 4th place wildcard team. So they have 6.5 games worth of room to play with in terms of a playoff spot. I think they are a playoff team simply because of the space they've afforded themselves. I don't view them as a legitimate. I wouldn't view them as a legitimate contender for the AL at that point. I just think unless they all just got hot again and it just, I would not be, my expectations would be much lower than what they've been for most of the year. Because right now I look at the team. I mean, if Savale if he's inconsistent, I know it's just been 2 starts and they're tweaking. I'm sure they're tweaking some things and working with him. And Glasnow's got backs, but like I can't, for this team to get it all put together in time and to hit their stride. It's possible, of course. I think realistically, a team like the Astros or the Rangers or even the Blue Jays potentially would be, or the Orioles, of course, but I would view them a lot more favorably than I would view the Rays.
I'm looking at this team like, and I'm going to be real with you, and I'll be real with everybody watching in the live stream right now because we do have some people watching.
Mm-hmm.
I would like them to be deep into the playoffs, but I can just see them being bounced in the first round again this season.
And I think it depends on the opponent.
I don't know. I don't know, Drew. I think whoever they play, no matter what, they could be a one and done. They could be bounced in the wild card series, and that's that. And we have another disappointing season where there was so much going for them in the first half, and then it's just a nosedive.
Yeah, that's what would be the most frustrating part about it is just because of how high the expectations were.
Remember, the beginning of the season, there wasn't really any high expectations. They thought they were going to be like a almost middle of the road team, and then
wild card
at best. And all of a sudden, like the huge explosion in the first half, and then they're like the best.
Yeah, I mean, for the first half of the year, I've been thinking like, okay, we're going to have number 1 seed AL. We're going to have a great chance at getting to ALCS for the first time since 2020.
Right.
And from there, who knows what's going to happen. This year, it just lowering expectations back to almost kind of what they were last year going into the playoffs feels so deflating. But I think it's the realistic outcome to think that this team is probably not going. Again, anything can happen, but I think the most likely outcome is that they play close to 500 ball, maybe a little better. I don't know, because I just think that their pitching gives them such a high floor. And they're, I don't want to say limping into the postseason like they were last year, but they're not coming into the postseason just like, all right,
hot.
They're
not coming into the postseason hot.
Yeah, we're looking really good, and we're ready to go. We feel good against teams like Houston because I don't know. I mean, watch out. Houston is very much just back to what they normally do. Teams like Texas in that lineup and even Blue Jays. I worry if they, they're not able to secure at least the number 1 wild card. Going on the road to the AL Central team, I know that they didn't do well last year. I think going on the road to the AL Central team would probably be the best outcome if they don't secure the number 1 wild card or the division.
Yeah.
And it feels weird to be like, all right, if that's the case, and I know we're not going to win the division, then let's root for the Rays to slide down 2 spots and just hold that 3rd spot. But
it's like they have a walker, and they're walking.
Yeah.
They're like limping, walking into the playoffs.
And I'm an I mean, I say I'm an optimist. Sometimes when I'm in the game, I just think the worst. I'm like such a pessimist, but I get every day my energy renews for the team, right? Like I think going into this series, is it very likely that they come in looking really flat because of everything going on in a game in San Francisco? That's just I'm not anticipating a ton of offense, and yeah, like it's very possible. But like I also think it's possible that they come out and, hey, they could have a good couple series. I mean, San Francisco's a decent team. They're a playoff team right now, but the Angels were, they're missing Otani. They're as far as they're not going to face him on the mound. And they've got maybe some of these young guys. Basabe looked pretty good Sunday. He was a little rough in the field, but he's been good in AAA and looked good at the plate. Showed some speed on some plays too. And Curtis Mead, obviously, he's only got a couple of hits, but we know that can drive the ball. Like, who knows? Maybe some guys step up. And we come out of this week, and yeah, the Wander stuff is looming and depressing. But we got other guys, keeping things going. And then, hey, we play the Rockies and the Yankees at home next week. I will be in attendance on Thursday at Colorado because we're coming back down to Florida for a week to see the family. And, those are two series that you would think they're going to win both those series based on what's happening with those teams involved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, these could be a good couple of weeks for the Rays, despite everything. Do I think it's more likely going to be a 500-ish type stretch? Probably. But, I'm not going to count the team out.
Right.
But this
either am I. And
this team
look
is not good enough to win a World Series without Wander Franco. And even currently with Wander Franco, you can make the argument that they're not the best team in the American League.
I don't think they're stacked up to win it because of what's going on with the rotation. Because now it's like, okay,
Right.
who's next to go down and with injury, and then with him gone too, it's like. But I look at it this way. We'll end on this note. The best teams show you how they can be with being resilient when it comes to situations like these. Like the best teams show up when they can rally around each other and win. And I think that's hopefully what they'll do. Is I'm hoping that they have had a team meeting either on the plane or before they left today and are rallying around each other and saying, look, we just got to put this in our rear view and not let this distract us and just win.
Yep.
That's all they got to do. So, well, thanks everybody for joining us for a live edition of the Rays Rewind podcast presented to you by the Believe Podcast Network. WATB Sports and Channel Side Sports as well. You can catch myself and Drew on the Believe Podcast Network. Make sure you go there to check our new episodes that come out. Also, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, and the YouTube channel as well to get new episodes as they drop. We will see you guys next week. So make sure you subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Rays Rewind Pod. For myself and Drew, we will see you guys later. Please.
See you.